When we first started working on this album, I was excited to see where it would go. I knew that I wasn't going to be happy kind of just doing a continuation of what we'd already done before.
When we initially started to think about making this record, in our minds we wanted to try something new.
What we were kind of preparing ourselves for was to try and redevelop the sound of the band from every aspect, which was kind of a scary thought.
We were looking back at the things that we had done in the past, Hybrid Theory through Meteora, and I think we just figured that we had exhausted that sound. It was easy for us to replicate, it was easy for other bands to replicate, and we just needed to move on.
We didn't want to lose anything that people might enjoy about the band, but we also didn't want to, make a trilogy. We didn't want to make another album that sounded like what people would expect.
As far as Rick Rubin, we wanted the right guy to help us facilitate what we were trying to accomplish, and we didn't know what that was.
Rick has done so many records that are just amazing, just ridiculous stuff. Some of the records that he's done have been really influential to me, like, Raising Hell by Run DMC, Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Chili Peppers.
Rick's way of working is a lot different than anybody that we've worked with in the past.
It feels like, when he was going into a lot of those projects, it was like throw out the rule book and make music.
He would initiate conversations as far as like, you want to do it this way, you've done that before. Why don't you think about doing it another way?
He kind of gets in there and says, all that stuff that people say you are, you don't have to be that. And if that's in your head, if you think you have to be that, then that's not true either.
He said, I want you guys just to forget what the Linkin Park sound sounds like, and just go and just write music and write whatever you like. Just write it. That's what we did. We just started writing ideas, not thinking about what it should sound like, just writing whatever came to our minds.
There's an early point where Brad and I were working on some music. Everything we were working on was coming out radically different. Just kind of sounds and textures of music that we never had done before, and a lot of it was us sitting in his little home studio just kind of saying, is this a Linkin Park song? Like, can we work with this? Like, he'd play something for me, I say I love it, but I can't yet, visualize how that would finish.
At one point we're listening to all the stuff that we really, really liked, and we were kind of in shock, saying, wow, this is really different than what Linkin Park has sounded like in the past, and what are we going to do about this?
When we first met with Rick, he asked us how our process worked, and after we described it, he said, I don't know if you know this, but you don't make records like most rock bands. You make records like a rap production team. That contributes to your sound. You make a track, and then you put vocals on the track. The reason the song sounded the way they did is because our approach was different. So we threw that out the window.
Originally we'd work in spots like this. All the guys would kind of go to each other's home studios and just work on ideas that they'd been working on individually. We get everything that we've done from the studio and update them on our own hard drives. We can bring them back home and then work on your own.
When we started working on this album, we made sure not to use any of the conventional methods that we've picked up along the way.
Rick dubbed all of our earliest ideas seeds. On the other records, Brad and I would go to my house and start a whole bunch of seeds, and then we'd bring them to the guys when we thought they were ready, and we'd narrow those down. On this process, right off the bat, I said, why don't we do 6 different hard drives, 6 Pro Tools rigs, and everybody starts their own seeds, and we'll come in once a week and play them for everybody.
We'd bring in a seed, rather than it being developed to a certain degree before anybody heard it, we heard it right away.
It was more like everyone kind of had sketchbooks, You make these little doodles, and in our case it was music.
Overall, it sparked a new kind of creativity.
Everyone came up with tons of music. We had about 150 songs that we started out with, each guy coming up with different songs and passing it to the next guy.
This song's working title is Grecian. I just started playing guitar to that click, into that rhythm, and eventually started building a beat around it. Eventually add maybe like some crash, that kind of stuff. Now if you take that and you give it to Brad and Mike, I'll show you what happens. There's some Chester on it.
It was interesting because a lot of the process was actually done in scatting. We would literally just kind of mumble words.
The pieces of the secrets that I'll never find.
We have a musical idea that we like. The goal has been to get vocals on it right away, and because it would take too long to actually write words that make sense, the first thing that Mike or Chester will do is just go in the vocal booth and spontaneously sing using gibberish.
You know, you listen to a track and you hear a bunch of da-na-nas. And I always made a joke with Mike. I'm like, man, you know, this chick Donna, you know, she must be something because every song is written about her.
Very complicated harmony. Don't try that out. Yeah, try that one.
We learned the discipline to just take the initial musical idea and put the vocals on it, and you can tell right away whether it's worth developing. Those ideas where the content was the strongest are the ones that then they got worked up stylistically.
So already you can tell that this version now is in the range that we wanted to sing it in. The words were wrong, but it was the right melody and rhythm.
I re-scatted the verse because I'm not sure if the words are making me think of certain melodies, so I wanted to remove the words.
It's funny listening to these because, I mean, there's no words, you know? It's just, we're just ba-na-na-na-na-na.
It was hard for, I think, a lot of the guys to really attach themselves to the melodies early on without hearing words, and especially for Rick. We'd show him lyrics and he'd be like, this doesn't mean anything to me. Whether or not the lyrics were good enough or not, he wanted to hear the song sung. So I ended up singing tracks, you know, 15, 16, 30 times, you know.
All the way from this. To.
I dreamed I was missing. You were so scared, but no one would listen.
And that's how we do. Hi, Bordy. Look, it's Rob Borden.
Why, hello. It's band meeting time.
It's band meeting time?
Yeah. At one point, we're listening to all the stuff that we really, really liked, and we were kind of in shock, saying, wow, this is really different than what Linkin Park has sounded like in the past, and what are we gonna do about this? And we were trying to stay in that frame of mind that Rick talked to us about in the beginning, was don't think about what it should sound like, just think about what you like and what sounds good to you.
We had like weird dance songs and heavy metal songs and like stuff that sounded real 80s, and if anyone ever heard this stuff, they wouldn't think it's the same band. Sometimes it's kind of like aimless wandering. You know, we're making music, but we don't know what it's gonna be or what it should be. It was just important as a discovery process.
There's always been piano. Mike's really good at the piano. Rob's good at the piano too. He played some piano on some stuff. Just in general, this album's more musical in a different way. It's not specifically just like guitar distortion. It's more songs, and then we've tried to think about unique ways to arrange them.
That's a piece of a song that was, I think, number like 72 or something like that. It made it into the mix. It was in the mix and stayed in the mix for a little bit, but then got voted out, so goodbye to that.
Really the scariest part, I think, for me was, you know, hearing something that I loved and that I thought was really beautiful and different, and, you know, whether or not it was gonna survive. You know, the process.
This is the pre-seeds folder. These are the rough song ideas that still need musical work, which at this point probably won't be happening. But some of the greatest merit to these songs are their titles. Some of my favorites include Electric Uvula, Hemophiliac, Chunky Monkey, one of my favorites, Resident Turd Face, and I think probably one of the most witty titles that Chester came up with, Clever Name.
When we crossed the 100 seed mark, I think everybody looked around and went, I can't believe that we've made this much stuff in this amount of time.
Just to give you a sense of how much like raw material there is, I'm the least creative one in the group, so I would title them Song A. then song B. I did song A through Z, and the only one that actually made it like to the next step was song Q, so that might also be a reflection of just how bad the stuff I brought in was. There was definitely a learning curve. We had a few great songs off the bat, and then we had a lot of crap.
There's definitely a lot of bad stuff.
Like when I say 150 songs, the majority of it's crap.
But yeah, you'll never get to hear any of that.
We've made 2 records in the past, and we've done some other projects on the side, and they've all been unique in a certain way. But this was completely different than anything we've done before. We went about the entire process completely backwards. For instance, we never went into the studio until we were, I'd say, 80% done with the songs. This process, we actually went into the studio about a year before the completion date.
Starting from at home on our individual rigs, to bringing them into what we call the Korn studio, which is a space that Korn owns. We were there from January of '06 to the middle of '06, and then we moved everything to Laurel, which is really a house. You have to bring in all the gear.
It was a cool house as far as it being on the hill and having some of that history, but it's really worn down.
The first time we walked into the house, we knew some of the rumors that Houdini had lived there, that people had said it was haunted and whatnot.
Let me out. I'm so scared. I keep hearing noises. I just shit my pants.
Dude, I thought this was real. Dude, I thought that was a real dinosaur for a second.
I mean, looking around in this studio, you know, this is a studio that we're at NRG right now. You know, you've got the board, you've got the nice room with the acoustic treatments on the walls. You know, everything is set up to sound as good as possible. We're used to recording in a room like this, but when we did the record with Rick, he immediately said, why don't we go to, you know, the Laurel Canyon house? It made a lot of the guys uncomfortable at first because they're like, I don't know, it's definitely not gonna sound as good, for sure. There's no way it could. But there's also a certain feeling like when you're coming to a studio, you're at work. When you're at a house, you could be hanging out. And for the first, you know, month, we'd be screwing around a lot, like playing a lot of basketball and messing around.
We're chilling at the studio.
15. 15 all. 30, 15. And set.
That's not to say that no work got done, but it is to say that there's an adjustment period.
In a studio, you don't really know what time of day it is. You lose track of the hours. You know, you go outside and you're surprised it's dark out. But in the house, you can actually see the day as it changes. And that was something that was helpful during the process. You know, watching cars driving by and all that. It felt like we were still part of society in a way, rather than being closed in this environment where you don't really know what's going on in the outside world.
Glass hurts when you walk into it. So that mistake should not be repeated.
We started to write songs in like an organic kind of fashion. We just naturally started to focus and stop screwing around and start really working hard.
The house kind of had this vibe and it kind of lent itself to a creative atmosphere. And then it was also like really desolate and kind of empty and cold, you know? So it was an interesting contrast.
There are 3 stories in the Laurel Canyon house. I mean, there's tons of little weird rooms and 3 floors of weirdness going on. Just stairways that curve around in strange directions and rooms that are only like 6 feet tall. Come in here, I'll show you where Chester is real quick. This is the room we're working in, and then 2 rooms away. Camera. Camera. Camera? Camera. And that's where Chester's at.
Hey! This is the amp room. This thing right here, this is pretty much the most expensive amp you can get.
Check out these amps. Like each of these amps is basically the cost of a hotel room a day.
I think this is the most expensive thing we're renting at the moment in the house. It's known as the Bo Diddley amp.
The company that manufactured these only made like 20 of them.
Apparently they custom made like 50,
and I'm sure like 10 of them were destroyed.
Of the 50 that they made, he probably went through 30 of them eventually.
So like our engineer Andrew said, he's literally only seen this amp, like a picture of this amp.
Looks like a piece of crap to me, but apparently it sounds kind of cool.
The clean sound on this is just a joke, and then a really cool feature, if you turn it around, is it actually has a tape delay. So it's just super cool and super expensive.
I don't know what these knobs do, but I know that I'm not supposed to touch them. Brad's gonna be so pissed. Look at that.
Unlike a traditional studio where you've got really one room to work in, we had, I think we either called it A or 1, which was the first floor, and that was the main tracking room. The control room was set up in what used to be like a library, and then the tracking took place in what probably would have been like the living room. And then on 2, we had all our electronic gear set up. So if we wanted to mess with a Mellotron or an old Moog keyboard or weird synthesizers and drum machines, 808s, that's where we could do that work simultaneously. And then at the end of the process, we also had a rig up on 3 where the vocals are being cut.
I'm gonna leave a little present in here for Ethan, and then I'm gonna go outside.
So I really felt at the end like we were maximizing all of the studio space.
People would be working on any of the 3 levels in different rooms at the same time. I mean, we could have 4 different things going on at once. There's a studio recording vocals upstairs. I could be on the second level writing more lyrics. Joe could be doing beats and stuff in the room next door, and then drums and guitar could be tracking downstairs.
I multitask. I don't eat pizza and Pringles, I eat pizza Pringles. The pizza is right in here. That's more Pringle.
So we're on our way over to the studio. I probably go over to the studio almost every day. I have a few more days of recording to do. Joe's actually in right now working with Andrew, our engineer. So I'm kind of like getting in where I fit in around his schedule.
There was a lot of freedom. It wasn't one room dedicated to like only one person being able to record at a certain time. We had tons of equipment around, and you could just come in at any time and record. So like I would just basically start running all the sounds into different amps in different rooms.
There's always so much going on within a song, so a lot of times after working in the studio, I would go back to my practice room and work on some of the parts that I knew I was going to record the next day. So now I'm on my way over to my drum studio. I go back and forth a lot from the Laurel studio to my drum room. There's actually times when I'm working in the studio, and I'll hit a point where I know that I just need to stop working on the actual recording process and go back to practicing and writing. I've been to the studio probably hundreds of times in the last year. It almost feels like Groundhog's Day at some point. There are other days that are really incredible days where new ideas come out and I get a lot done. One of the things that Rick has really been impressing on us is that when the ideas are just flowing, it's really important to just run with those and to keep going. So when that happens, I stay there as long as my body can physically handle it. Evil Idea was done at Laurel. This song was written at the Laurel studio, and I actually worked on the drums with Mike there. As Mike was sitting in the control room, I was sitting at my kit, and we were just coming up with different ideas together. So I've been through this song now, and we've decided that this is the drum part for Evil Idea. So at this point, I'm just practicing this. We have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and the songs tend to change a lot. So I'm sure that when I get to the studio to track Evil Idea, there will be some changes that I haven't practiced yet. Just are we punching in the end of that piece, or are we doing is the beat going to play up until this new fill that we're doing right now?
Well, we're going to do a whole nother take, but I think just there's something interesting about the thing you almost played, so we want to get that on the end of that take.
Okay, so it's just going to be a tom lead-in to the...
Yeah.
The songs were constantly changing, and whenever anybody was inspired to do something, they kind of just went and did it. You could throw an idea out there and it doesn't work, then we just revert back to the version before. This concludes the drum session day, and now I am off to Laurel for a band meeting where we sit and talk about all the great music we're making.
We've always been more of a studio-style band, and then said, let's learn how to play these songs live when it comes to that. And this time, we experimented with the fact of, it's never worked in the past, but what if we do kind of sit and all try and record at the same time? What's that going to look like? How's that going to feel?
We're here at Laurel today working on 2 songs, Patience and Ebo Idea, and we're playing them live as a band to see if that result is better than the versions we have already in the computer, which were mainly tracked individually.
We sat down and kind of put Rob in a section, me in a section, Brad in a section, and then most hilarious of it all is Mike and Chester in their own little vocal booths. Chester's being like completely enclosed and probably only 6.5 feet tall, so it's kind of really low like ceiling and extremely hot and muggy. So we'd all be playing and Chester's in there, we're completely naked, just sweating and disgusting.
Get the fuck out of here.
What?
What are you doing in there, dude?
It's fucking partying.
Toasty in there?
It's partying in there.
Sauna in there, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know why you kept those on.
I was thinking about taking them off, but I didn't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
The mentality that Rick brings is he'll try anything. And so if someone gets an idea when you're listening to something, I know if you're working on a guitar part, it doesn't sound right, let's try and play it on a piano, let's try and play it on a banjo, let's try and play it on anything.
We're literally at this point trying everything. After I finish this, I'm gonna have to go through and replay all these options with my fingers. And after I finish that, I'm gonna have to go through and replay all the options with my teeth.
Whenever you're trying to create the beginning, middle, and end of a song, all the solutions you've found that have worked, you can't use them anymore. You're in a sense even more limited or even more challenged to come up with something compelling and unique.
The drums that actually ended up on Drum Song are the drums that I recorded in that little home studio.
We'd put a ton of work into a song and trying to develop an idea, and Rick would say, you know what, let's go back to the original form and where that song was at. I think I like that better.
It was frustrating for me when I was in the studio and I heard Rick's opinion on it. I invested probably 50 to 100 hours of work on the drums, and all of it was just for practice.
That sucks to hear at times, but a lot of times it was kind of like everybody agreed.
Once I got past that initial reaction, I just sat back and listened to it, and A beat him, and I went, he's so right. He's dead on.
I think we, in the prior albums, figured, if we put 20 hours of work into this or X amount of time of work and we've rewritten it this many times, then where we're at now has to be better than where we were at 2 weeks ago or 6 months ago.
There's all these different roads you can take. Don't just walk down it. You gotta pummel that road to the point that it's no longer working. Look, Santa. Ooh, a fairy. Anything happy.
There's a specific moment in the recording and writing process that was way different from any other record we've ever done. Now, normally what happens is if somebody feels like they really don't like a part, they'll just catch us in the studio and say, that line, da-da-da, I really don't like it. Can you check with the other guys and see if that's true for them too?
Today, what we did is we put all songs are in the computer downstairs with all the vocals, and we printed out lyrics on everything. And the rest of the band is sitting down there and basically picking
everything apart.
Yeah, apart all of our work and saying what's wrong with it.
We opened the door, well, I should say I did, because I don't think Chester wanted to the other guys to make comments and notes on our vocals.
I appreciate democracy, but at the same time, I have very strong feelings when it comes to the kind of music that I want to listen to.
And we had Rick lead that meeting, so it was 4 guys and Rick, and he basically moderated it, and when there was a consensus about a line or a part, whatever, they'd write it down.
We knew that we didn't really want to be in that meeting, so we decided to go up and continue working on other things. If the answer is going to come back, try a different direction. It's too late for that. It was tough because for me and the way I think, they were all wrong already. But it was interesting because I wanted to hear what they had to say, and then I wanted to give my rebuttal.
They're gonna come back, they're gonna be like, we got good and bad news, so you should sit down. We like 80% of your stuff. The other 20%, start over.
It ended up being a lot more notes than we would normally get on a record, which sucked.
One of the notes I remember, the way it was worded was, "This doesn't sound like music." I was like, fuck you guys.
When you work for 2 months on anything and somebody tells you that they don't like it, your first instinct is, well, fuck you, you do better. You come in here and try and beat this, because I've worked my ass off and I can't Like, that's all I got.
We'll bring down like a stack of papers like this big and be like, yeah, we've got some notes on the music. Let's start with bass.
Hey Joe, you know what? I think your notes are really good. Go ahead and do it. I'll finish fucking doing all the sampling on the record.
We should do that. We totally.
Fucking cocksmoker. It's easy for them to say, maybe you should go back and like try to make this better. They don't understand that Mike and I have already done that probably 50, 60 times before we even show them. So when everybody gets involved, telling you what you already know they're gonna say, it gets really frustrating. Actually, why don't the four of you guys go up there with Ethan, finish fucking singing the records, rewrite the lyrics. Mike and I will sit down here, and we'll fucking nitpick through all your shit.
And once we got over that, it was like, okay, 4 guys don't like this, and it's not good. I mean, no matter how much we like it, we can say that it's good, but it's not great then. It took a long time to fix some of those things because it really needed to be special in order for it to be better than what it was.
It worked out for the greater good, but man, it was like pulling your teeth out, you know, at some points.
I think at the end of the whole thing, everybody feels really invested, you know, and that's important. I want everybody to listen to the record and go, I had a say in everything, you know.
These were last week's lyrics. You know this? Those are last week's lyrics. And these are the rewrites. These are some of Chester's notes. My notes. Rewriting. Most of them around like version 4 or 5 rewrites per. But this one has 838 million rewrites. That's how I felt about that one. I was not happy to be rewriting it again.
I was joking with people, like when we were about 3 months in, that I was writing myself out of the record. Because I was singing everything.
I was like, you should probably sing. You do all the harmonies live. You've been working at this now for, 7, almost 8 years. I think you should try.
There were no rap parts at all. Like, I just put it down as singing because that's what I thought sounded better. Like, I'd try and put rap stuff on it, and I thought it sounded cheesy, it sounded cliche.
He would sing songs and we'd listen to it, and if there was an aesthetic that his voice brought to the track that mine couldn't capture, that was really, unique and genuine, then we went with it.
What ended up happening is people listened to some of those and in a couple cases compared it to Chester's we did as band, and Chester was like, yours is way better, don't even use my vocal. And we had him sing it too, just to make sure that we weren't being crazy. I consider Chester one of the best singers of our time. I mean, and that's not just being in the band with the guy. I would challenge anybody to sing the stuff that he sings, to cover the song and make it sound anything like him. You can't do it, And there are other singers that are like that, and I think he's on that level. For him to listen to something that I sang and say, yours is better, that was crazy for me.
We came back to NRG at the end of this process. Laurel Canyon House was already being revamped for a new project.
When it comes to just needing to get stuff done and having things set up the way we're really familiar, NRG's always been a really good place for us to work. I made a joke to Jay, the owner, that apparently our record isn't a record until we've spent money here.
You know what's nice about NRG? When you walk in the door, that's love, man. Thanks, Jay.
Pictures guitar solo. Take 1. You'll edit that part out.
Coming in here to put the golden ticket in the Wonka bar. That's what I'm here to do. May I have a Wonka bar, please? 2 chocolate Wonka bars. I've given up. I'm sick of dealing. Is there nothing you can say?
Hey, Chester, what's that thing you're singing into?
The popper stopper. Just stops all the pop from getting through. Just rock, just pure rock can get through this one.
Hey, wait, take the popper stopper off and show the folks at home what happens if the popper stopper comes off.
Here's the chorus. I've given up. Right? Put the popper stopper off. I've given up.
Put it back on.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's like all of a sudden I get like really pissed.
I've definitely said this before. I think Chester's one of the best singers in the world. The fact that he's the singer in the band I'm in is like pretty dope for me.
Tasty.
That's on sex.
We have this like ongoing joke. We were like kind of laughing about it, but we're like, okay, and you're done. One more time.
Fucking excellent. Let's do a double of that and you're done.
For today.
For now.
It got to the point where like we actually really did finish. I got in my car and I was driving home, and Brad called me and goes, "We forgot to double this one line." I was like, "You gotta be kidding me."
At 4:36, I looked in here and I saw these tracks up here are the ones that we were supposed to re-sing. And I noticed that this one ended here. So that means there was one word that I forgot to have him sing, and we had told him to go home, that he was done finally at 4:35. And so 4:36 through 4:39, I tried to fake it by copy and pasting different things and fudging it so I didn't have to ask him to come back. And fortunately, that didn't work. So it is now 4:40 p.m. and once again, you're back.
Hey guys.
You're not done yet. Far from the course.
I'm going back in. Just when I thought I was out,
I'm so
they pull me back in.
I'm an asshole. Can't believe that happened. So, it sucks.
I'm like the chick who's like, you know, boyfriend keeps promising to take her out, but never does. It's kind of like that, only I'm the guy that keeps getting told like, hey, the record's done, like, good job. We need you to come back.
Every step of the way, it's been this, where it's like, oh, we're done, and oh, no, we're not quite done. Last one, ready?
I'll believe it when I'm opening the CD.
Time is borrowed. Your time has come to pay.
Okay, so go home and we'll see you probably again soon. Yeah, don't leave quickly. Don't leave too quickly. I might need you.
I'm still waiting for the call to come back in and finish. I'm not going to consider this record done until I can actually go to a store and buy it.
The guys gave me a production credit on this record next to Rick Rubin, which I couldn't be more excited about. You know, that's a huge nod, and I had to live up to that. So I tried my best to really get involved with instrument like I always do, and just try and make sure that they know that I'll be there to bounce ideas off of. I'll make sure that everything is put together correctly, you know.
We're gonna be recording strings on 6 songs today.
Okay.
We're starting with drum song today,
All right.
which is probably the most
All right, cool.
special song on the record to some, and I think the strings are gonna make it
Whatever instruments
even
you take,
more
always take the rooms and just make sure.
excelente. We worked with David Campbell on the strings, who has scored our songs before. Mike and I met with him and listened to all his arrangements and actually brought them back to Mike's home studio and added things to them and changed them and made sure that they were working with our sense of the songs.
Brad and I and Dave did all the work that we have to worry about last week, where we wrote all the parts and made sure they were right and changed them. And we mocked them up on keyboards. So at this point, it's on autopilot. I can sit back and have a sandwich, and I know they're gonna be awesome.
This is such an awesome day. One, because we don't have to do anything, because as Mike explained, we've already worked the parts out, and everyone's so professional. Between the players and the conductor and Andrew, we just get to enjoy it. It's funny because the strings ultimately get mixed just one element in the song, but on the day where they're recording them, if you're listening through the board, it's like the loudest thing. The string parts themselves are really beautiful. I'm so proud of how those sound in and of themselves, and then when you add them into the songs as just one element, kind of exemplifies the depth and the layering sonically that goes into the making of each song. It sounded great in the control room, but it sounded even better in the room. It's like incredible sounding.
I don't know what's harder, like writing songs or like actually like trying to like name a record.
There was definitely a point where I was potentially I was gearing myself up to be very unhappy with and disappointed with the album title.
Our band is so bad at coming up with titles for things. I mean, we have a DVD called Frat Party at the Pancake Festival. Like, you know we're horrible at it.
Frat Party at Pancake Festival is mine also.
You know, we had a couple different ideas that had been kicked around, that kind of stuff, and there was one that a couple guys liked. That it was In Triumph and Tragedy.
There was probably like 15 names or titles that like I thought were great, but like somebody in the band was like, eh.
Chester brought up this idea about the Doomsday Clock.
I was watching this special on the Doomsday Clock. It was developed as kind of like the idea to kind of mark the end of the world. There's only 15 minutes on the Doomsday Clock, the 9 mark to the midnight mark, and it can move back and forth. You know, the more heated things are in the world, the closer we are to midnight.
Just the idea of minutes to midnight can mean so many different things. You know, it's got that feel of like something important. It's got that feel of like something like looming.
Told the guys about the idea of the Doomsday Clock thing and applying that to kind of like how the band has changed from, you know, what we used to be like to like what we've become, you know, and the risk that's involving. So minutes to midnight kind of made sense.
Chester may claim that he's excited about it because he named it, quote unquote, he's gonna relish in glory forever.
I cracked the code on that one.
I may have been even more excited about it just because I was saved from an album title I didn't like at all.
The last song we finished, this a song called What I've Done. To me, that song encompasses what the album is. It's kind of a little bit of a link from the previous stuff we've done into this. Lyrically, it's about like recognizing the faults of the past and trying to move on with the future, and that's what this album's about.
I think that we did reinvent ourselves in a big way on this record, and I think listening to the music, you can tell that it's Linkin Park, but there's something different about it. There's something new and fresh.
As Chester put it really eloquently once, you know, at this point we're not just idiots jumping around the stage.
We really grew as songwriters on this record. We were able to take stuff that was just so out there and make it sound like our band and put our touch on it.
You can never control what happens to the record once it's released, but you can control the process and the record that you make and what it sounds like, and that's how I define success.
I don't feel like I have to defend it. I don't feel like I have to say anything other than I hope you like it. You know, this is something we're proud of. This is something that we're excited about, and to this point, or at least right now, this is the best we can do. You know, this is Linkin Park at its best.